Special needs and inclusive education. Primary history education. Resources are barrier dependent. So depending on what the learner's barrier is, will depend on what resources are needed. If the children or learner has a barrier to listening, sign language, these will be, or hearing aids, so this will be auditory barriers. Visual barriers require braille and typewriters. Subject resources, this will be dependent on, for example, maths would need different equipment to what English would need. Listening barriers, the placement of the learner within the classroom and keeping them away from any distractions will assist children with learning barriers. Communication barriers, the teacher needs to make sure that her lesson has a correct flow and tempo and is clear, and the simple instructions will assist the children with communication barriers. Reading and viewing, a facilitator could be used in large print or tape recordings. Also, workbooks need to have fewer words written down on that page so it doesn't overwhelm the learner. Writing barriers could be a scribe, extra time, an occupational therapist, and also phrasing the questions very simply. You can see the child on the bottom right-hand corner is using a reading pen to help them. Cognitive barriers would require the teacher to use demonstrations to reinforce the information that has been given, and also breaking down of the information to step it so that it's simple. Spelling barrier, breaking down and sounding out, so again it's your phonics of the words. And a grammar barrier, concrete objects and teaching visually are very important for these learners. Learning areas, and we're going to talk about history. So inquiry is the learner needs to be prompted to speak about the previous history or knowledge that they have on that topic. Building on existing knowledge using different sources, and that's your scaffolding. The different sources could be videos, pictures, photographs, maps, and written accounts. If you're lucky enough to have artifacts or similar objects, you can demonstrate them or show them to the learners. A timeline of an event in relation to today or to the learner is important, because when we talk about things in history, the child needs to know and understand where the placement of that event took place. So you would relate it to when Jesus was born, when they were born, their parents were born, where COVID was, so they can see it and actually relate to the timeline. Easy explanations and accounts that the learner can follow to understand. Communication and using visual and auditory resources are important. And when using new words or a new subject, the learners need to be able to understand what they have acquired, the vocabulary, that the new words and the vocab that is used in that topic. The children need to be able to understand that so they can take part in class discussions, and that is how they would help the learners in the history classroom. At the heart of history is good storytelling. I really, really believe that everybody loves a good story. Another quote that I put there, strength lies in differences, not similarities. Teaching methodologies. Learners are the most important and valuable element within that classroom. We will not be teachers, we will not have classrooms or schools if there were no learners that were attending those classrooms. Successful teaching relies on participation of all the learners within the classroom. It's the teacher's responsibility to make sure that all the learners are engaged within that classroom. Teachers must adapt their teaching to the different learning styles and different learning levels. Respect, tolerance, and appreciation of one another in the classroom is essential. And that goes with understanding and compassion as well, so that we can relate to one another, even around our differences. And the differences are actually, that's what makes us exciting, is that we're not all the same. Learners should demonstrate their understanding and work in different forms. So depending on the learning style of the learner and the learner's level of understanding is how they will present their knowledge that they have on the subject. Learners must understand the expectations of the teacher. So the expectations must be very clear that the teacher puts to the children. Learners should be allowed to express their interests. So it's important that they are able to communicate what they are interested in and what their thoughts are. All learners are at different levels of understanding and learning, and a good teacher will be able to recognize these different levels and the different styles of learning and what it is that they understand. Allowance of pace and learning must be factored into the classroom. So if the teacher is covering a more involved topic or part of the lesson, the pace should slow down. And then again, reinforcement needs to take place to make sure that the learners have understood what has been said. And this is how we will have our successful, happy children in the classroom. Multi-level teaching. This is based on Bloom's taxonomy. Well, it's one of the tools that can be used. In Bloom's taxonomy, depending on the level that the teacher needs the learner to acquire, the teacher would use different words to ask the questions. And when you look at Bloom's taxonomy, they always give you examples of, if you're asking a question, how to ask the question, because that will ensure that that level is being attained by the learner. The teacher must phrase questions to suit the learner's style of learning. And again, I said the use of Bloom's taxonomy will encompass the class's different levels of understanding and learning. Co-operative learning. This is a very important part of class. If children work in large groups, it promotes discussions and sharing of the learner's experiences and knowledge, because most children will have an experience about what's happened or a thought or idea about what the topic is about. The only downfall here I find is that the quieter learners seem to fade into the background and they don't partake. Small groups allow the teachers to guide and prompt the learning experience. So if they divide it into small groups, the teacher can move from table to table and gently guide the learners by asking open questions about what it is that is needed to complete the task. Paired group, it encourages communication skills. It also encourages social skills, because it's a very intimate setting that the learners will work in, the two of them together. Intergroup is pairing the groups of learners with similar ideas and interests at the same level of learning. Excuse the spelling mistake there. So it encourages children to expand on the existing knowledge, and also because they're on the same level, they will then grow together. Cooperative groups are small groups where individuals contribute towards a project or a topic. So each child within that group will be given a task, and at the end of the lesson or before the end of the lesson, they will put the information together and then present it as a group, with everybody having contributed to a section of that. Cluster groups, they are learners grouped together with each with a different learning style and understanding and different levels of prowess. And this also allows children to see other people's point of view and to learn and to expand their knowledge on that.